He snapped his fingers at me, pointed at my car. My $300,000 silent electric car. You! The car goes to the service entrance. I was standing under the portico of the Pinnacle Hotel, holding my single overnight bag. I was about to close the biggest deal of my life, a $3.8 billion merger. And the owner of the hotel mistook me for the valet. He was an older man, Lawrence Cromwell, dressed in a blazer that had gone out of style with the last century. He was nervously awaiting the arrival of the CEO. Me, he didn't look at me. He looked through me. "And be careful with the luggage," he barked. "The CEO of Ether Innovations is arriving at any moment." I slowly took off my sunglasses. I didn't say a word. I just gave him a small, quiet smile. What he didn't know, what he couldn't possibly comprehend, was that the man he just ordered around like a servant held the signed contract for a $45 million deal that was the only thing keeping his beloved hotel from collapsing into bankruptcy. He thought he was putting me in my place. He had just made the most expensive mistake of his life. I played my part. I nodded to my driver to move the car, and I carried my own bag through the towering, gilded doors of the lobby. The air smelled of old polish and desperation. Inside, the place was a museum to a dying era, all crystal chandeliers and faded velvet, and it was straining at the seams. I could see it in the tired eyes of the staff, in the slight wear on the rug leading to the front desk, a path of shame trod by countless anxious guests. I approached the desk. The young clerk, a woman with kind eyes and a name tag that read Chloe, gave me a genuine smile. "Checking in?" she asked. "Donovan Thorn," I said. "Not CEO?" "Not Mr. Thorn. Just a name." I wanted to see how deep the rot went. She found my reservation, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "Excellent, Mr. Thorn. We have you in the Heritage Suite. If you could just present a card for incidentals." I slid it across the marble counter. It was obsidian black, milled from a single piece of titanium, a piece of functional art, with a credit limit higher than the hotel's monthly payroll. Chloe didn't blink. She reached for the card reader, but Cromwell, who had been hovering like a vulture waiting for his real prey to arrive, swooped in again. He placed a hand on her wrist, stopping her. He plucked the card from the counter. "Son," he said, that condescending, paternalistic smile plastered on his face. He held the card up to the light, as if looking for a watermark. The few people in line behind me shifted uncomfortably, one letting out a stifled laugh. "We can't accept novelty cards," he said, the word dripping with disdain. "Do you have a real American Express? A Visa? Something we're familiar with?" I looked at him, my face a calm mask. My voice was even, low, designed to force him to lean in to hear me. "That card is quite real, I assure you. It's a Centurion card. Perhaps you've heard of it?" He waved a dismissive hand. "I don't care what it's called." "It looks like a toy. Now, do you have a proper method of payment, or shall I have to ask you to leave?" I paused, letting the silence stretch just a beat too long for his comfort. The lobby was utterly quiet now, but it's not the card you should be worried about, I said, my tone conversational, almost friendly. I took the card back from his limp fingers, handed it to Chloe, and nodded. She swiped it without a word, her eyes wide. The machine chirped its acceptance. Cromwell's face was a confused shade of red. "Your key, Mr. Thorn," Chloe said, her voice barely a whisper. "The elevator is to your left." I didn't look back at Cromwell. I didn't need to. I could feel his bewildered glare burning into my back all the way to the elevator. That night, in the opulent silence of the Heritage Suite, I spread the merger documents across a mahogany table that probably cost more than my first car. The deal was with Omnicorp, a legacy tech giant. My company, Ether Innovations, was the shiny new prize. They got our bleeding-edge AI, we got their global distribution. It was a win-win. But as I reviewed the ancillary agreements, a clause caught my eye. Annex B, Section 4. Post-merger executive retreats and hospitality. I read it once, then twice. A 5-year exclusive contract. All senior leadership summits, all board offsites, all booked at the Pinnacle Hotel chain. A line item worth $45 million, owned by Lawrence Cromwell. It all clicked into place with the cold final sound of a lock turning. his desperation for this deal, his frantic hovering. He wasn't just hosting us. He was on life support. My merger was the syringe full of adrenaline straight to his company's heart. I leaned back in my chair, the hum of the city a distant whisper below. The anger was there, a hot, sharp stone in my gut, but it was quickly encased in ice. Anger was a luxury. Strategy was a weapon. He thought he was mocking a driver, a man beneath his notice. He had no idea he was insulting the architect of his financial ruin. The official welcome dinner was held in the hotel's grand ballroom the next evening. I wore a simple, impeccably tailored suit, no tie. Cromwell was resplendent in a tuxedo that was too tight around the middle, schmoozing with the Omnicorp executives. When he saw me, his eyes widened in recognition, then narrowed in confusion. He hurried over. "Mr. Thorn, I didn't realize you were part of the Ether delegation," he said, his voice strained. "I'm full of surprises," I replied. Taking a glass of sparkling water from a passing tray, he gave a tight, nervous laugh and scuttled away. Later, during his speech, he stood at the podium, beaming. "The union of Omnicorp and Ether Innovations isn't just a merger," he boomed. "It's a testament to enduring values, to legacy, and we at the Pinnacle are proud to be the home for this new chapter." His eyes scanned the room, and for a fleeting second, they landed on me. A flicker of something, panic, crossed his face. He cleared his throat. "And it's wonderful to see such a diverse team," he added, the words clumsy and forced. A few people clapped politely. Most shifted in their seats. It really does take all kinds. The silence that followed was deafening. He had tried to give a compliment and instead had thrown a grenade into the middle of the room. I didn't react. I simply stood, raised my glass of water in a silent, ironic toast, and walked out. The message was clearer than any outburst could ever be. The final negotiation session was set for 10 a.m. in the hotel's boardroom. The air was thick with anticipation. The main deal was done. This was for the final sign-offs, the ancillary agreements, like the $45 million hotel contract. Cromwell was there, sitting proudly against the wall, ready to sign on the dotted line. I entered last. All conversation stopped. I placed my tablet on the table and stood at the head of it. "Good morning," I began, my voice cool and professional. "Before we proceed, there's a material issue that needs to be addressed. We have a structural problem with Annex B." Cromwell's head snapped up. The lead lawyer for Omnicorp frowned. "What kind of structural problem, Donovan?" "The Pinnacle hotel chain is an unacceptable partner," I said, looking directly at Cromwell. "Our due diligence has uncovered a debt-to-asset ratio that is alarming. There's a high probability of insolvency within the fiscal year. I cannot, in good faith, risk shareholder value or our corporate stability on a partner that may not exist in 12 months. The room erupted. Cromwell shot to his feet, his face a mottled purple. "This is nonsense," he spluttered, pointing a trembling finger at me. "This is about yesterday? You're sabotaging this deal because your feelings got hurt. This is petty revenge." All eyes turned to me. This was the moment. The pivot, I remained ice calm. "This isn't about feelings, Lawrence. It's about fiduciary responsibility. It's my job to see risks you choose to ignore." I paused, letting the weight of my title, my actual authority, settle in the room. "And since you've raised it, yes, your conduct was unprofessional. But it was also a valuable data point. It revealed a culture of negligence, of poor judgment, and a staggering lack of awareness. Qualities that are, it seems, perfectly reflected in your company's financials." I tapped my tablet, and the screens around the room lit up with graphs, charts, and damning excerpts from the report my team had pulled together overnight. "The Pinnacle chain is not an asset. It's a liability." Cromwell looked like a man watching his life raft drift away. "You can't do this," he whispered. "But we're not just here to tear things down," I continued, my tone shifting from prosecutorial to visionary. I swiped the screen. A new proposal appeared. "We are here to build. I propose we reallocate the $45 million, and I will personally match it with another 20 from Ether to create the Ether Foundation for Hospitality Innovation." I looked around the room, making eye contact with every Omnicorp board member. This foundation will identify, fund, and mentor a new generation of hoteliers. We will build a portfolio of boutique hotels in the very cities where our retreats were planned. Hotels owned by entrepreneurs who understand the modern world, who value innovation over tradition for tradition's sake. I turned my gaze back to Cromwell, who had sunk into his chair, a broken man. We're not just canceling a deal with you, Mr. Cromwell, I said, my voice now quiet, but carrying to every corner of the silent room. We're building a better one. With your competitors, the real ones. The vote was unanimous. The Omnicorp board, seeing both the financial logic and the public relations gold mine, agreed instantly. The merger was approved minus one toxic partner. The months that followed were a whirlwind of skepticism, bureaucracy, and slow, grinding progress. The shock wasn't the money. It was that Elias made Sarah the CEO and chief architect of the Cedar Falls project. He was the bank. She was the vision. He watched her in meetings with engineers, with state officials, with former factory workers. She was incisive, patient, and brilliant. She translated complex economic theory into language everyone could understand. The town, once skeptical, began to believe. They weren't being rescued by a billionaire. They were being led by one of their own, who had never really left. The climax came not in a boardroom, but in the cavernous, dusty space of the old Miller tool and die factory. The town council and the press were gathered. A slick developer from a rival city was trying to lobby for a massive warehouse instead of Sarah's complex revitalization plan. This innovation hub is a fantasy, the developer argued. You need jobs now. My warehouse provides 500 jobs. The council was wavering. Simple jobs were better than complex dreams. Sarah stepped forward. She didn't have a fancy presentation. She just started to speak. This town wasn't built on warehouses, she said, her voice clear and strong. It was built on craftsmanship, on skill. My grandfather worked in this factory. He didn't just press a button. He made something. We have that same potential. We can train our people not to pack boxes, but to code software, to operate advanced machinery, to start businesses that serve a global economy. She looked at Elias, then back at the council. Elias Thorn's money isn't a gift. It's a tool, but the real wealth, the real capital, has been here all along. It's in us. It's in our hands and in our minds. We don't need to be saved. We need to be unleashed. The vote was unanimous. 1 year later, Elias sat in the same vinyl booth at Marty's Diner. The place was bustling, but it was different. The clientele was a mix of old-timers and young tech workers from the new incubator housed in the revived factory. Marty was beaming, showing off a new espresso machine paid for by a small business grant from the project. Sarah slid into the booth across from him, placing 2 mugs of surprisingly good coffee on the table. She wasn't in a waitress uniform. She wore a simple professional blazer. She was still Sarah from Cedar Falls, but the light in her eyes, the one he remembered from the library, was back, and it was burning bright. The first cohort of coding graduates got job offers, she said. Average salary, $85,000. They're staying. They're buying houses here. Elias smiled, a real, uncalculated smile. The arc of their potential, he murmured. She looked at him, understanding dawning in her eyes. You remembered that? I remember everything, Sarah. They sat in comfortable silence, 2 friends who had taken very different paths to the same destination. The Billionaire and the Waitress. The labels were gone, burned away in the fire of a shared purpose. He hadn't given her a charity check. He had returned her stolen future, and in doing so, had found a better one for himself. He looked around the thriving diner, at the town slowly coming back to life outside the window. The balance sheet in his mind, once solely populated by profit and loss, now had a new column. It was filled with things that were priceless: purpose, redemption, and the profound, shocking truth that the greatest wealth wasn't in what you accumulated, but in what you gave back.